Hey guys, and welcome to another video. Today, I know it's been a few months, but we are going to take a look at each team, World Baseball Classics team raids and how they performed in this year's tournament. Let's go ahead and get into it without further ado. Alright, so we're going to start with Group A, so Panama. I'm going to grade them a B. Their 14-year absence, it was 14 years. I mean, they honestly exploded for 12 runs in an upset of Chinese Taipei, and they were a serious contender to the quarterfinals. Ruben Tejada, now an elder statesman for the Mets, led the offense with a 1.042 OPS, and they were outclassed during their blowout loss to Cuba. The signs of what this program could be definitely showed, though. Alright, next up we have the Netherlands. They are C+. They were caught in the crossfire of the five-way tie. Group A wasn't even the most, it was always the most even group, and at least one talented team was going to go home early. The Netherlands lost, in fact, led by Xander Bogaerts and Jurrien Profar. They scored just 13 runs compared to 48 plated during a semifinal run in 2017. They also controlled their destiny in a finale against Italy, but left the bases loaded to a 7-1 loss. Give them the doubt regard to how level Pool A was, but coming off 2 straight WBC semifinal appearances is really sting. Will really sting. Alright, next up we're Italy. Italy A-. Mike Piazza, the manager of Italy. The only thing that went wrong was power. Although things worked out well, they made it to the quarterfinals for the first time ever, despite hitting just 1 home run in 5 games, and none during pool play. They did it in an old-fashioned way with timely hitting and shutdown pitching that included 2 brilliant starts from Matt Harvey. They ended with a buzzsaw in Japan, but they did a really good job guiding this club with some tough competition to get to Tokyo. They have a watershed moment to be proud of while building for even more success in 3 years. Alright, next up, we have the Cuba, a B. Their success had to do with relatively even level of competition. They are armed with MLB players and prospects in the affiliated minors. Started slowly in Pool A before storming back to not only win the group, but advanced all the way to the semifinals. The first 2 losses in Taishan, Taiwan against Panama and Chinese Taipei were blowouts. But then they let Australia hang around in the quarterfinal game and route to a 1-run victory. The semifinals, different story, as they got demolished by the Americans. Cuba played the U.S. in Miami just 4 days after facing Australia in Tokyo. They got back to the semifinals for the first time since the inaugural WBC, and was a result of rebuilding the Cuban national team after it failed to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. It's worth an extra point or 2. And then Chinese Taipei. Home field advantage, but everything seemed to be set up perfectly, and entered the tournament ranked 2nd in the world, finished 5th after tiebreakers, forcing to requalify to the 2026 tournament. There are some great moments for Taipei, including Pool A MVP Yu Chang's grand slam and the catcher's offensive heroics, but the end result for a team that hoped to send a message on the world stage was better. Alright, so that is Group A. Moving on to Group B, Australia, A-. They turned Pool D upside down, finishing in 2nd place and advancing to the quarterfinals for the first time. They were able to take down South Korea in a tight opening game and would join Japan in the corners and stub his toe in pool play against powerful Japanese. They made up mostly of homegrown talent from the Australian Baseball League, displayed some impressive power. They hit 7 home runs in 5 games before a quarterfinal loss to Cuba. Australia's biggest baseball moment since winning a silver medal at the 2004 Olympics. And it was especially fitting that former Brewers catcher Dave Nielsen, the first Australian to play in an MLB All-Star game, managed the team. Next up, China, C-. They were overmatched. Mercy ruled twice, including a 20-run to South Korea, and they were outscored 50-10 10 over 4 games, they were relegated to the qualifiers. But take a step back and consider them. The national team hadn't played in a tournament since 2019 due to COVID, and the China's professional baseball league, where nearly all national team members play, had been shut down for the last 3 years. Most of them hadn't played in a competitive game at any level since the pandemic, and it was almost a miracle that they scored 10 runs. Next up, we have the Czech Republic in A. They were mostly semi-pros who balanced day jobs with their baseball careers, beat China to secure a spot in the 2026 WBC. They had a lead against Japan for 2+ innings and contended for a spot in the quarterfinals until the very end. The electrician, who barely cracked 80 on the mound, struck out Shohei. Even the most generous of expectations could not have predicted the kind of success. No baseball fan will forget this team's determination, and this was just an amazing team overall. Next up, we have Japan, A+. The Samurai Japan entered the tournament as the world's top-ranked team. Japan became only the second nation to go undefeated, joining Dominican Republic in 2013. Masataka Yoshida, Shugo Maki, and Kazuma Okamoto all had 2 home runs, and Yoshida's 13 RBIs tied a WBC record. Roki Sasaki and Munetaka Murakami dazzled, whetting appetites for eventual moves to the MLB. And then there was tournament MVP Shohei Ohtani, who proved that he's the best player on earth. He put a baseball clinic over the last 2 weeks and is very deserving of calling world champion. Alright, next up, South Korea, a D. It was another WBC to forget for them, a dynamic roster that included one of the best players in KBO, and plus MLB players, Ha-Seong Kim and Tommy Edman, who were under immense pressure to get out of the first round for the first time since 2009. The script was played out that was reminiscent of 2017. 6 years ago, South Korea lost a tight opener to Israel and never recovered. It was a 1-run opening loss to Australia, followed by a blowout defeat against Japan. By the time the Bats did get going far against the Jets and Chinese, it was too late. The 22-run outburst against China sparred them from having to requalify, though it is likely to be a little solace to a country that prides itself on being a top baseball nation. And yeah, that is Group B. Going to Group C, we are now moving on, and we're going to start with Canada, C+. Canada had a golden opportunity to finally advance, and once again they lost bid to Mexico to go home in the first round. In short-term, disappointing result for a talented baseball nation that didn't have all of its best players available. But Canadian fans should also take comfort from long-term signs. Twins prospect Edouard Julien made a real run at Pool C MVP honors, hitting .538 with a pair of homers. While Phillies farmhand Noah Sturrow turned heads with 5 shutout innings against Colombia. They showed how dangerous this next generation of baseball talent has the potential to be. Next up, Colombia, B-. If there wasn't any team that didn't deserve relegation, it's this squad. They battled hard throughout Pool C, earning a gritty upset win against Mexico before making the Americans earn their way to Miami in the final game. Even more impressive considering Colombia was without Jose Quintana, who had to bow out at the last moment because of a rib injury. As a loss to Great Britain gave the Brits 4th place via the head-to-head tiebreaker, meaning they are now forced to requalify for 2026. Somehow, baseball is just cruel. They should be a favorite to return to the main tournament when the time comes. Next up, we have Great Britain, B+. Fine showing for Great Britain in its debut, armed with some quality talent, top catching prospect Harry Ford and Dodgers outfielder Trace Thompson. The Brits got a critical win against Colombia that clinched its spot in the next tournament. They were able to hang with both the U.S. and Mexico, and they did take plenty of lumps with a merciful loss to Canada and some very poor defensive play, standing out. Overall first impressions go, they left a pretty good one. Between the sudden success of the national team and London games scheduled for the next few seasons, baseball is in the midst of a growth spurt. Next up, we have Mexico, A-. The Mexicans found their groove, advancing to the semifinals for the first time. Randy Rosiana led the way with a dynamic two-way play and endearing personality. The other heroes from the team, Joey Meneses and the Field Destroyers of the 2022 season, crushed 2 homers against the U.S. in pool play and finished the tournament with a 9.63 OPS. Patrick Sandoval returned in 2 amazing starts, most notably against Japan in the semis. His run ending in a loss to the powerful Japanese club, they can go home incredibly proud. A presence as a top-tier baseball power and won't be going away anytime soon. And United States with B+. They nearly repeated as the WBC champion. They hummed along the tournament, led by shortstop Trey Turner out of the 9-hole. They fell. Offensive force was seen during the 14-2 dismantling of Cuba. However, the pitching staff isn't something to be desired. Merrill Kelly is a solid mid-rotation arm, but you do not want him in a win-or-go-home situation. Unfortunately for the U.S., depth issues left Kelly the only choice for that game. First-time skipper Mark DeRosa's bullpen management came into question. DeRosa had Ryan Presley rested and ready to go into the final and didn't turn to the all-star stopper against Japan. He also waited too long to pull Daniel Bard during this wild outing against Venezuela that cost the Americans a semifinal spot. The U.S. made it back to the final as expected. The tournament was a success, but things could have gone better. Perhaps if Team USA brings its best pitchers in 2026, that will happen. And then Venezuela with an A-. The end result may not have been what it wanted, but their tournament was a big win. Oh, this is Pool D, sorry. Alright, so that's it for Pool B, for Pool C. Going on to Pool D, we're going to start out with, I'm trying to find it here, Australia, Canada, China, Chinese Taipei, Colombia, Cuba, Dominican Republic are next F. Even after Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had to withdraw, they were being labeled as a dream team. No chance. Most assumed that this star-studded squad would lose it all, let alone in the first round. And yeah, that's what happened. Against the Pool D minnows that the Dominican Republic looked like the team everyone expected. Venezuela getting to Sandy Alcantara in the opener put the team on their heels early in the elimination loss to Puerto Rico, a game in which the Dominicans controlled their own fate, featured sloppy play. When you enter the tournament as the betting favorites with a dream team label, you've got to produce. A first-round exit is inexcusable. Next up, Israel, C-. Although easier on Israel because of a bad draw on Pool D, but that doesn't ease the disappointment. The offense, which was supposed to be bolstered by the addition of Jock Peterson, went completely silent, eliminating any hope. The team recorded just 1 total hit during its Mercy Rule losses to Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, and didn't have a base runner against Puerto Rico. It wasn't counted as an official perfect game due to the Mercy Rule. Some consolation can be taken in the win over Nicaragua, which ensured qualification in 2026. And 19-year-old D-backs prospect Jacob Steinmetz' impressive start against the Dominicans. Israel's baseball program has come in a long way. The stinging of this tournament will be felt for a long while. Next up, Nicaragua, B-. Their fate was sealed the moment it was placed in Pool D, and it only got worse from there. The Central American nation was unable to get a win in its debut, with the most crushing loss coming in the opening game against Israel. It was the one game Nicaragua would have in order to be guaranteed a spot. Instead, it now has to requalify likely without the services of its big league players. Still, while clearly overmatched, Marvin Bernard's squad gets a slightly more positive grade for not making it easy on the big boys. They scored in all 4 games and did not lose by more than 5 runs. It also gave us one of the tournament's best stories in pitcher Dewey Hebert, who struck out 3 Dominican All-Stars in his first inning outside of Nicaragua and was signed by the Tigers on the spot. Next up, Puerto Rico, B-. Puerto Rico looked dominant. Marcus Stroman gave manager Yachty 2 stellar starts, and the offense was clicking from day one, outscoring opponents 34-17. Even Puerto Rico's 1 Pool D loss to Venezuela was close. The team erased an 8-run deficit. Unfortunately, the tournament will not be remembered fondly, as Edwin Diaz's unfortunate knee injury with celebrating over the win over its Dominican rivals. Without Diaz, the bullpen blew a lead against Mexico in the quarterfinals, and the loss was a bitter pill to swallow for the two-time finalists, and the team's stellar play over the course of the tournament will hardly serve as consolation. Alright, and then Venezuela, A-. The end result may not have what it wanted, but their tournament was a win for the program. Instead of the Dominicans steamrolling Pool D, it was the Venezuelans who played the role of juggernaut, staying undefeated in pool play while outscoring their competition 23-9. Anthony Santander and Salvador Perez were monsters at the plate for the entire tournament, and Omar Lopez's club did this without some of his biggest stars, including Wilson and William Contreras. Pretty much everything was clicking for this team until the 8th inning against the United States, when Trey Turner's grand slam left a stunned Venezuela heading home. Still, their performance served to erase memories of a thoroughly disappointing 2017 WBC, while re-establishing the team as a legitimate threat on the world stage. And yeah, that is each team's grades in this year's World Baseball Classic tournament. We look forward to seeing the tournament in 2026. I don't know where it's going to be held. I think it might be held in the United States again, but I don't know. We'll wait and see who will be in this year in that tournament. So thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe down below. Really appreciate it. And see you guys in the next one. Peace.